My name's Lucas, and until last month, I was just your average IT consultant. Overworked, underslept, and permanently glued to my laptop. This all happened during a layover at Frankfurt Airport, around 2 a.m., after a brutal 14-hour flight from Singapore. I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open, but I needed to catch my connecting flight to Budapest. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification. Gate change. Flight LH2319 now, departing from gate 33B. No big deal, right? Except when I checked the departure boards, 33B wasn't listed. Not just delayed, it straight up didn't exist on any screen that I figured it was a glitch, so I dragged my carry-on to the nearest help desk. The airline employee there, a gaunt guy with bloodshot eyes and a name tag that just said, Kessler, barely looked up and I asked, "Gate 33BS down the hall, last door on the left," he muttered, jerking his thumb toward a dimly lit corridor. Something about his tone made my stomach twist, but I shrugged it off. Airports are weird at night. The hallway kept stretching like one of those dreams where you're running but never get anywhere. Emergency exit signs flickered overhead, and the air smelled like stale coffee and something metallic. The further I walked, the more the airport degraded. Modern glass and steel gave way to yellowed linoleum and walls covered in peeling beige paint. A lone vending machine hummed weakly, its display showing out of service in cracked LED letters. The ads on the walls were all wrong. Faded posters for Pan AM and TWA, airlines that hadn't existed since my parents were kids. My phone buzzed again, 5 minutes to boarding. No signal, no Wi-Fi, just that icy notification glaring at me. I turned a corner and froze. Gate 33B was there, but it looked like it hadn't been used in decades. The sign hung crooked, one letter flickering like a dying bulb. And the people waiting, Jesus, they sat perfectly still, their postures stiff like mannequins propped up in chairs. None of them looked at me. Not the woman in a 1980s power suit clutching a leather briefcase. Not the kid in a Back to the Future t-shirt rocking silently in his seat. Their clothes were spotless but wrong, like costumes in a museum. The air smelled like ozone and wet newspaper. I forced myself to sit near the back, my backpack hugged to my chest. That's when I noticed their eyes. Glassy, unblinking. The man across from me had a tic. His left thumb twitched every 10 seconds exactly, like a broken metronome. I pulled out my phone to film, but the camera showed only static. Then the PA system crackled to life. Final boarding for flight 2319. All passengers must board. The voice didn't sound human, more like a recording played backward at half speed. I stood up, my legs shaky, and peered through the floor-to-ceiling windows beside gate 33B. Outside, the runway lights flickered like dying fireflies, illuminating an aircraft that shouldn't exist. A Boeing 727, its once white paint now yellowed and streaked with rust. But the worst part? The windows. Every single one was blacked out, not by curtains, but by something moving inside, shifting like thick smoke pressed against the glass. My breath hitched when a shadow passed by a window, too large to be human. A voice behind me made me jump. "You don't want to miss your flight." The power-suited woman was now standing way too close, her smile stretching further than lips should. I stumbled back, knocking over a metal ashtray. Who even had those anymore? The sound echoed like a gunshot, but none of the other passengers reacted. No gasps, no glances, just that same dead-eyed stare. The kid in the Back to the Future shirt was now humming a tune I didn't recognize, his pupils so dilated they looked like black marbles. Think, Lucas, think. I turned to sprint back the way I'd come, but the hallway was gone. In its place, a narrow corridor lined with flickering fluorescent lights, the walls plastered with 1970s airport safety posters, their colors bleached by time. A cold realization hit me. This isn't a gate change. This is a trap. The PA system screeched again, this time with a voice that sounded like it was coming from underwater. Last call for flight 2319. Doors closing. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The gate agent's desk was empty now, but a single boarding pass had appeared on the counter. My name printed in faded ink, the destination blank. Behind me, The other passengers stood in unison, their movements synchronized like puppets on strings. The man with the twitching thumb turned his head toward me, and for the first time, his lips curled into a smile. "They're waiting for you," he whispered, his breath smelling like old pennies. The gate door creaked open by itself, revealing a jet bridge that looked rusted shut years ago. I knew I should have run, but my legs wouldn't move. The kid in the Back to the Future shirt grabbed my wrist. His fingers were cold, like he'd been dead for hours. "You hear them, don't you?" he asked, tilting his head toward the plane. That's when I realized the blackened windows weren't just covered. They were pressed outward, like something inside was pushing against the glass, testing its strength. A low, rhythmic thumping echoed from the aircraft, matching the tempo of my panicked heartbeat. The power-suited woman leaned in, her neck craning at an impossible angle. "It's easier if you don't fight," she murmured. The jet bridge lights flickered, and for a split second, I saw shapes moving inside, tall, spindly. All wronged, I yanked my arm free and bolted, my sneakers slipping on the grimy floor. The corridor twisted like a maze, doors slamming shut behind me as I passed. The exit signs led me in circles, always pointing back toward gate 33B. My phone suddenly lit up, a text from an unknown number. "You forgot your bag." I glanced back just in time to see my abandoned suitcase being carried onto the plane by a figure in an airline uniform. Except its arms were too long, its movements too fluid. The speakers hissed static, then a new message. "Lucas Gray. Final warning." The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, like the oxygen was being sucked out of the room. The walls pulsed slightly, as if the building itself was alive. That I collapsed against a service door, my vision spotting with black dots. That's when I saw him, the employee from earlier, M. Kessler, standing at the end of the hall under a burned-out light. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then, all at once, his voice boomed inside my skull. "You weren't supposed to see this gate." The floor beneath me vibrated, and the distant sound of an engine roared to life. The plane's door was still open, the jet bridge trembling under the weight of something approaching. The passengers stood at the threshold, their heads tilted in unison, watching me. The kid raised a hand and waved goodbye. "Next time, you'll board," he called, his voice suddenly much older, much wearier. That I don't remember how I got out. One second I was clawing at the service door. The next I was sprawled on the polished floor of the main terminal, gasping like I'd been underwater for hours. The clock above the departure board read 2:17 a.m., the same time I'd first gotten the gate change notification. A janitor stared at me, his mop clattering to the ground. "You okay, man?" he asked. I couldn't speak. My boarding pass was still clutched in my fist, but now it was just a blank slip of paper. When I checked flight LH2319, the screen said canceled. I never told airport security what happened. What would I even say? But sometimes when I'm stuck on a layover late at night, I'll see a flicker of movement near an unmarked door or catch a whiff of that metallic scent. And once, just once, I got another notification. Flight 2319 now boarding at gate 33B. I deleted it so fast my hands shook. I don't know what that plane was or where it was going, but I know one thing. Those passengers weren't human. And if I boarded, I don't think I'd have ever come back. My name is Tiago, and I'm an architect. Or at least I was supposed to be presenting a high-stakes project to a client in Sao Paulo that day. Instead, I was stranded at Guarulhos Airport after a storm grounded half the flights. The terminals were chaos, screaming kids, delayed passengers sleeping on luggage, the sour stench of sweat and fast food. I was sweating through my dress shirt, frantically checking my phone for alternatives when he approached me. The man wore a navy blue suit too crisp for the humidity, his smile stretching like a crack in glass. "Mr. Lima," he said, though I hadn't told anyone my name, "there's a special flight for stranded passengers. Terminal D." His voice was smooth, but his pupils were pinpricks, black and endless. I should have run, but with my career on the line, I followed him through a service door marked staff only, the air turning colder with every step. The freight elevator groaned like something alive as it descended, flickering lights revealing graffiti in no alphabet I recognized. When the doors opened, Terminal D wasn't just old, it was wrong. Faded posters advertised destinations like Zabalba and Y229, the letters bleeding at the edges. The few passengers sat perfectly still, their skin waxy under the jaundiced lights. One turned to stare at me, and I swear his eyelids didn't blink, just peeled back slower, stickier than humanly possible. The intercom screeched, then a voice like wet gravel echoed. Final boarding for flight 0000. All delivered passengers proceed. My stomach dropped. Delivered? I fumbled for my boarding pass, the one the suit man had handed me without a word. The paper was ice cold, my name replaced by that single, grotesque word. Across the terminal, a gate flickered open, revealing a tunnel that smelled of burnt hair and copper. No plane, just darkness. And the passengers stood in unison, their joints clicking. The freight elevator groaned like something alive as it descended, flickering lights revealing graffiti in no alphabet I recognized. When the doors opened, Terminal D wasn't just old, it was wrong. Faded posters advertised destinations like Zabalba and Y229, the letters bleeding at the edges. The few passengers sat perfectly still, their skin waxy under the jaundiced lights. One turned to stare at me, and I swear his eyelids didn't blink, just peeled back slower, stickier than humanly possible. A stale, meaty smell clung to the air, like a butcher shop left closed for weeks. My phone had no signal, but the time flashed midnight in glitching digits. That's when I heard it, a wet, rhythmic drip from the ceiling, even though the walls were bone dry. The intercom screeched, then a voice like wet gravel echoed. Final boarding for flight 0000. All delivered passengers proceed. My stomach dropped. Delivered? I fumbled for my boarding pass, the one the suit man had handed me without a word. The paper was ice cold, my name replaced by that single, grotesque word. Across the terminal, a gate flickered open, revealing a tunnel that smelled of burnt hair and copper. No plane, just darkness. And the passengers stood in unison, their joints clicking. The closest one, a woman in a 1940s-style dress, opened her mouth and a black, syrupy liquid oozed down her chin as she whispered, "You're already late." Behind her, the gate's darkness pulsed, like something breathing. I stumbled backward, but the exit doors had vanished. Only the tunnel remained. The woman's words sent electric panic down my spine. I turned to run, but my shoes stuck to the floor as if the tiles were coated in glue or something organic. The more I struggled, the louder the dripping sound became, now synchronized with my pounding heartbeat. Across the terminal, the remaining passengers began shuffling toward the dark tunnel, their movements unnaturally smooth, like puppets on tangled strings. One man's head lolled sideways, his neck bent at an impossible angle, yet he kept walking without a sound. That's when I noticed none of them cast shadows under the flickering lights that I frantically searched for an alarm, a fire extinguisher, anything, but the walls were bare except for peeling safety notices in that same alien script. My breath came in ragged gasps as I spotted a maintenance door slightly ajar. I lunged for it, my fingers barely grazing the handle before it slammed shut by itself. From the other side came a sound that still haunts me, a low, wet chuckle, followed by 3 deliberate knocks. "Tiago," whispered a voice that wasn't quite human. The intercom crackled again. "Delayed passengers will be processed." The word processed echoed, dripping with horrible implications. The terminal lights began dimming section by section, plunging everything into darkness except the glowing tunnel entrance. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and something metallic, like blood after it's begun to rust. My boarding pass suddenly burned my fingers. I dropped it just in time to see the word delivered melt into received in bubbling black ink. The few remaining lights reflected off the passengers' eyes as they turned toward me in perfect unison, their irises milky white. One, a child no older than 6, opened its mouth wide, too wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth as it hissed. "Don't you want to go home?" I backed against a pillar, feeling something wet soak through my shirt. The entire surface was weeping a dark, viscous fluid that smelled like rotting flowers. My watch had stopped at 3:33 a.m., though I'd entered Terminal D at sunset. A new sound cut through the silence. The distant roar of an engine, though no plane was visible through the terminal's fogged windows. The windows themselves were wrong. The glass warped inward, as if something enormous was pressing against it from outside. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface, and for one heart-stopping moment, I saw something move in the swirling mist beyond. A shape too large, too angular to be any aircraft I knew. The intercom screeched again, this time in a chorus of overlapping voices. Some human, some anything, but all chanting, "The vessel must be filled." The tunnel's darkness pulsed faster now, like a grotesque heartbeat. My legs gave out as I realized the truth. Terminal D wasn't for departures. It was a loading zone. The passengers weren't travelers. They were cargo. And I was the last piece needed before the flight could commence. The suited man reappeared at the tunnel's mouth, his smile now splitting his face ear to ear, revealing glistening black gums. "Don't fight it," he whispered, though his lips didn't move. "You signed a contract when you took the boarding pass." I looked down at my trembling hands. Where my fingerprints should have been, my skin now bore faint, pulsing symbols matching the terminal's alien script. The child thing giggled, its jaw unhinging further as it skittered toward me on all fours, joints bending backward. The windows shattered behind me, but no glass fell. It simply vanished along with the outside world. Only the tunnel remained, its darkness now alive with skittering movement. The suited man extended a hand, elongated fingers twitching with unnatural anticipation. "All aboard," he crooned, as the terminal itself seemed to inhale, walls contracting like lungs in a last act of desperation. I tore off my wristwatch and hurled it at the tunnel's entrance. The moment metal touched darkness, a deafening shriek erupted, not from the suited man, but from the tunnel itself, as if I'd wounded something vast and unseen. The terminal lights flared blinding white, and for 3 precious seconds, I saw the truth. The passengers were empty shells, their backs split open like discarded cocoons. The walls weren't walls at all, but membranous tissue veined with black ichor. Then the lights failed completely. When my vision returned, I was sprawled on the floor of a janitor's closet in Terminal B, my clothes drenched in sweat. Airport staff found me babbling about Flight 0000, but no record of it, or Terminal D, exists. They blamed hallucinations from exhaustion. But here's what they can't explain. My boarding pass was still clutched in my fist, now blank except for a single smudged word, almost. And every night at 3:33 a.m., my phone buzzes with a notification for a flight I never booked. Always with the same departure gate, D0. The gate that doesn't exist. The gate that's waiting. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I've worked baggage services at O'Hare for 9 years. I'm the guy who fixes your lost luggage nightmares, tag errors, delayed flights, the works. I like the routine, the hum of the carousels, the late night shifts where the airport empties out, just me and the flickering fluorescence. But 3 weeks ago, something ruined that. It started with a single suitcase, a faded blue hard case with no tags, no stickers, nothing. Every damn night at 3:17 a.m., it'd show up on Terminal C's carousel like clockwork. No flight records, no one on camera dropping it off. Just there. At first, I figured it was a glitch, some system error rerouting old luggage. But then I touched it. The handle was ice cold, even in the July heat, and the latches clicked open too easily, like they'd been waiting for me that I shouldn't have opened it. Protocol says to call security, but what was I supposed to say? Hey, a spooky suitcase keeps appearing, and my gut says it's bad news. Inside were kids' clothes, 90s stuff, neon windbreakers and corduroys, all folded too neatly. Underneath, a porcelain doll with one cracked eye stared up at me. Its smile looked relieved. Then the photos, a little boy, maybe 6 or 7, grinning in front of baggage claim, the check-in counters, even the employee break room. All spots I knew by heart. My hand shook when I found the cassette player at the bottom. The moment I pressed play, a kid's voice, high-pitched, staticky, said, "You left me here." What? I dropped it. The voice didn't sound recorded. It sounded close, like the kid was right behind me, whispering into the tape as I listened that I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that voice. Why? Like it was etched into my skull. The next shift, I tried to act normal, but my hands wouldn't stop sweating. That's when the footsteps started. Not the usual echo of airport staff in the tunnels below Terminal C, but something lighter, faster, a kid running. I'd spin around, and there'd be nothing, just the hum of the baggage belts. Then, near the ventilation grate, I heard it again, "Daniel." Just my name, whispered like a secret. I told myself it was exhaustion, but then Martinez, the night security guard, vanished. One minute he was radioing about a noise near Carousel 9, the next gone. They found his flashlight still on, rolling in slow circles near the spot where the blue suitcase always appears. I had no more. The airport archives were dusty, full of moldy paperwork and microfiche no one touched for decades. I dug until I found it. A Chicago Tribune clipping from November 1994. Local boy disappears at O'Hare. Father suspected. The photo made my stomach drop. The same kid from the suitcase pictures, grinning in front of a baggage cart. The article said his dad worked there, that he was the last person to see him alive. Then I saw the name, Daniel Mercer. My name. My stomach twisted. That couldn't be right. I was 4 in 94, living in Milwaukee with my mom. At least, that's what she'd always told me. But the dates didn't add up. I called her, my hands shaking. When I asked about the missing boy, the line went dead silent. Then she hung up. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched after that. The airport, usually so familiar, felt like a maze with invisible eyes tracking my every move. That night, the blue suitcase appeared again, but this time, it was already open when I found it. The doll was gone. In its place was a single Polaroid I hadn't seen before. The boy, but older, maybe 9 or 10, standing in front of my childhood home in Milwaukee. A house I knew we'd moved to in 95. My breath came in short gasps as I flipped it over. Scrawled in shaky cursive was, "You remember now, don't you?" That when the air got thick, like the whole terminal was holding its breath. From the shadows near Carousel 9, I heard it. A giggle. High-pitched. Happy. It made my skin crawl. I ran to the employee bathroom, splashed water on my face, and stared at my reflection. Dark circles, stubble, the same face I'd seen for 33 years. But then the lights flickered. In the mirror, just for a second, my reflection wasn't alone. A small hand gripped my shoulder. I whirled around. Nothing there. My radio crackled to life with static, then a child's voice. "You were supposed to stay with me." I smashed it against the sink. That's when I noticed the writing on the stall door, fresh, like someone had just scratched it into the paint. "Check the tapes, Daniel." My knees buckled. The security tapes. The ones from 94. If I could just see what happened that night, maybe this nightmare would make sense. The security office was deserted when I broke in. The old VHS tapes were labeled by year, stuffed in a cabinet that smelled like mildew. My hand shook as I threaded the 94 tape into the player. The grainy footage showed Terminal C, November 3rd, 11:43 p.m. A baggage worker, me, but not me, paced near Carousel 9, checking his watch. Then a little boy ran into frame, laughing. My throat closed up. It was the kid from the photos, wearing the same neon windbreaker from the suitcase. The man scooped him up, whispered something, then walked toward the service tunnel. The boy's smile faded. He kicked, screamed. The screen fizzed to static. When the image returned, the man was alone, smoothing his uniform. His name tag glinted in the fluorescent light. D. Mercer. I vomited into the trash can. That was me on that tape. But how? I was 4 in 94, wasn't I? I needed air. I stumbled outside to the tarmac, the cold wind slapping me awake. That's when I saw him, the boy, standing under a flickering streetlight near the cargo bay. He waved like we were old friends. Before I could move, he darted into the tunnel, the same one from the tape. My legs moved on their own. The tunnel was pitch black, smelling of oil and wet concrete. Then, up ahead, the boy's voice. "You forgot me here." A match struck. In the sudden light, I saw them. Dozens of Polaroids taped to the walls, all of me at different ages. School photos, birthdays, even my high school graduation. At the end of the tunnel, the blue suitcase sat open. The doll was back, its cracked eyes staring at me. The cassette player clicked on. "Welcome home, Daniel." I don't remember running back to the terminal. All I know is I woke up in my apartment, my mom pounding on the door. She looked older, her eyes red. "I try to protect you," she said before I could speak. She handed me a birth certificate, my name, but the birth year read 1986. 8 years older than I believed. "You were in the car when it happened," she whispered. "Your father, he took your brother that night. You were too young to remember." The room spun. The boy in the photos, my brother. The voice on the tape, his voice. All these years, I'd been living his life, thinking I was the only Daniel Mercer. My mom sobbed. "He loved that airport. Your father promised him a surprise. Then, he just never came back." I drove back to O'Hare at dawn. The terminal was quiet, the blue suitcase gone, but I knew where to look. The service tunnel was still unlocked. This time, I brought a flashlight. The Polaroids were gone, but something new sat in the center of the floor. A tiny pair of sneakers, the laces tied together. The same ones from the suitcase. My chest ached. I picked them up, and the second I touched them, the whisper started, not from the tunnel, but inside my head. Memories that weren't mine. A birthday party at gate C12. A man in a baggage uniform lifting a laughing boy onto a carousel. "Ready for your surprise, Danny?" The voice was mine, but older, deeper. My father's voice that I don't know how long I sat there, but when I finally stood, my legs were numb. The cassette player was in my bag. I don't remember grabbing it. I pressed play. This time, the voice was different. Older. Tired. "I'm sorry," it said. "I just wanted you to remember him." The static faded, and for the first time, the whispers stopped. The air felt lighter. I walked back to the carousel, and there he was, just a flicker like a reflection in glass. The boy, my brother, smiling. He waved, then pointed to the departures board. Every flight listed the same destination, home. Then he was gone. They never found Martinez. The official report blamed a mental breakdown, said he'd quit and wandered off. I didn't correct them. I quit too. Some nights, though, I drive past O'Hare just to sit in the parking lot. The blue suitcase never came back. Neither did the whispers. But once, at 3:17 a.m., my phone rang. No caller ID. When I answered, there was just a kid's laughter, then the sound of cassette tape clicking off. I like to think it's his way of saying goodbye. Or maybe thank you, because now I remember him. And that's all he ever wanted.